Welcome to Bike Week Radio Show.
Powered by Geico. 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.
Bike Week Radio Show with Bobby Wooldridge, Broc Glover, and Paul Carruthers on San Diego's sports leader, the mighty 1090.
Good morning and welcome into Bike Week Radio Show on San Diego sports leader, Mighty 1090. Thank you guys so much for tuning in through Mighty 1090 or through that Mighty 1090 smartphone app, and everyone listening through BikeWeekRadioshow.com. And the whole gang is back after their European adventures. The one and only, the Golden Boy, back in his chair, rightful throne, sitting straight across from me, Broc Glover. Good to have you back from Latvia, buddy.
It's good to be back, actually. It was a long trip, but very well worth it. It's an interesting part of the world that I had not visited, and those Baltic Sea countries, and it's beautiful up there.
And also here, the one and only Scott Cox, back from his German adventure.
Achtung.
Oktoberfest, right? Is that what you out there for?
Yeah, it was a Oktoberfest. Actually, Cologne's kind of a businessy place, and I was there specifically for the annual Intermont show, the big motorcycle show. It was fantastic.
And Paul Carruthers back from Bike Fest in Las Vegas, and who else knows what Paul Carruthers is doing this week, because he's all over the place. But Paul, welcome back, buddy.
Yeah, nice to be here. Everybody's I think everybody had a little bit of coffee this morning because the chatter in the back room was
wired,
rapid fire, and I have a feeling we're going to get in a fight today, which I kind of look forward to. Brock and I haven't seen each other for a while, so I think we're just going to go mano y mano, or a mano.
A mano, one-handed is all I need to kick your
Somebody's
ass.
leaving with a Melvin today, for sure.
All right, well, let's just jump into the news then. We have a huge show today. We have Eric Peronnard to recap the Red Bull Straight Rhythm at Pomona Fairplex. Brock, you went to last night, right?
I absolutely did, actually, yesterday evening or afternoon evening. It was a fun event, and we'll get into that after the man gives us the news.
And also, later in the program, Alex Chacón from modernmotodiaries.com. Really cool guy who's been everywhere you can possibly be on a bike, basically. He has a YouTube video with over 10 million views around the world in 360 degrees. If you haven't seen it, take 3 minutes during the show, check it out so you can well-verse yourself, because it's a pretty impressive video. And so Alex Chacón will be joining us as well. But let's just jump into it. Here's the news with Paul Carruthers.
Nobody knows the news better than Bike Week Radio Show.
This was an age when only men were allowed to read the news.
And only Bike Week Radio Show has the editor of Cycle News.
And in San Diego, one anchor man was more man than the rest.
And now, here's the editor of Cycle News, Paul Carruthers.
Yeah, I'm here. We can do the news now. It's all right, everyone. We can do the news. Hold on. Everyone, why are we all standing around? Let's go.
All right, I want to start out today's news portion by talking about team orders. I don't know how the listeners feel about it. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it does exist in motorcycle racing, even though you would think that it's a totally an individual sport. At the World Superbike Round in France today, they had 2 wet races. In the first race, Marco Melandri, who rides for the Factory Aprilia team, actually slowed down and let his teammate Sylvain Guintoli take the victory. It's important because Guintoli is trying to catch Kawasaki's Tom Sykes in the World Superbike Championship. Kawasaki ended up doing the same. Loris Baz, who's Tom Sykes' teammate, let him pass to finish 4th. So it tightened up the points battle, and obviously everyone was talking about it. Then in race 2, it was a similar situation, only Marco Melandri basically said, screw you, I'm not going to let you pass, and he took the win, beating Guintoli. Sykes didn't need any help in finishing 4th again. Guintoli came into that race trailing Sykes by 31 points. He leaves trailing by 12 points. That could have been 7 points if Melandri would have followed the team orders. There was even a pit board shown. If he would have followed those team orders and let him by, he said he just said no. And
so now what happens to him?
Well, probably nothing. And again, the first guy you want to beat is your teammate. And Brock will tell you this. And the only time you ever have 2 teammates really get along is if one of them's not as good as the other one, and he knows his place in the team. when you have a team, it's almost like in the NFL. If you have a quarterback controversy, it usually means you don't have a good quarterback. You have two mediocre guys. But Melandri's proven to be the faster guy on that team all year, but he also has done some silly things and not scored points. And Gintoli's a consistent guy who's put himself in position to potentially win the championship. And it's not a team sport, but then you can kind of, I don't like it. I don't like team orders, but you can also see why it happens, because it's important to the manufacturer to try to win the championship. It's important to everybody in the team that they try to win the championship, except for the guy on the team who's not going to. It's obviously not as important to him. So it was kind of interesting how it played out. I guess in the first race, Melandri was at least kind of not totally obvious with it, where Loris Baz, who has signed a deal to go to MotoGP next year, and he won't be on the same team as Tom Sykes again, he apparently made it pretty obvious that he was letting his teammate by. So it was done in two different ways. And again, in the second race, Melandri just decided to...
That happened, I remember, years ago in Formula One, where I think it was Schumacher and, help me out with Rubens Barrichello. I think Barrichello was...
Yeah, he made
winning,
it pretty obvious.
Like running away, and then he slowed down and kind of
stopped,
coasted 50 yards.
He basically almost stopped on the front straight to let his teammate by, which makes it really look
subtly
bad.
obvious.
I mean, you could run wide here and there in a couple of corners, and the guy could catch up or whatever. But when you make it look bad, it's just your way of saying, I don't believe this should be happening and whatever.
And I'm sure the two riders on the same team, they share technical information, what each other's learn, and what they learn on bike setup, and all that kind of stuff goes back and forth. So clearly, it is a team event in that aspect of it, and I'm sure, like you mentioned, the manufacturer is important for them to win the race, and that's why they're out there racing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's easy to see both sides of it, and. Yeah. There's a side of me that says, like, hey, if the guy's good enough to win, he needs to win. He shouldn't need his teammates' help. But, I mean, again, in 5 years, when you look at who won the World Superbike Championship, all Aprilia knows is that they want to see an Aprilia had won that championship. No one's going to remember how or why or whatever.
Or what rider was on it or where he went the rest of his career.
Right. Now, they have one round remaining. Unfortunately, it's not until November 2nd, so everybody involved has a little time to stew over things. And that will be in Qatar, or Qatar, depends on how you want to say it. So that's going to be interesting, because now it's obviously in a position where it'll come down to those two guys against each other. But again, maybe some team orders play into it again, so we'll just have to see where it goes. From a U.S. perspective, P.J. Jacobsen, who's from New York, finished 8th in the World Super Sport race there today. And Martin Cardenas, who rode AMA Superbike here this year for the Yoshimura Suzuki team, finished 16th. He's kind of he's doing the last 2 rounds on a semi-privateer Honda team just to see how that goes. In Enduro Cross, we had Colton Hacker won his 2nd race of the year, and that event took place in Denver. He beat Tadej Blazusiak and Cody Webb. And people talk about tight championships, and there's none tighter than this one, because Hacker and Blazusiak are actually tied on points, and Cody Webb is only 1 point behind them. So there's 3 guys separated by 1 point in that championship. We had the Red Bull Straight Rhythm, which we'll let Brock talk about here in a second, since he was there. I caught some of it on streaming on my laptop, and I was impressed. I thought it was a good show. I think it's something that could really catch on. It was kind of cool. Like we talked about earlier, it was pretty much Supercross without corners. So it was good to watch, and I think Brock will tell us, but I think it went off pretty well. We had Moto America news this week. That's Wayne Rainey's new series that's effectively taking over U.S. road racing. He's going to have a Superbike class with Superstock 1000 on the racetrack at the same time. They'll be scored separately. Both bikes will use slick racing tires. Superbike's obviously more finely tuned than the Superstock bikes, but he's trying to bring those rules closer in line with what the FIM uses with World Superbike and World Superstock. So, his goal is that if an American wants to race in a World Superbike race, he should be able to race on the same motorcycle that he's been using in the U.S. series. Super Sport, which was Daytona Sport Bike, will be run on 600s with slick tires, which is different than what they have been running on DOTs. They'll also have a super sport class that'll be called Super Stock 600, and that'll be run on DOT tires. That's probably more of a feeder class. Again, both classes will have rules more in line with the FIM rules. And then he's going to have 2 other classes that he's currently negotiating. When one of them, as he told us in their interview in Cycle News last week, is the Harley-Davidson class, which is Terry Vance sponsors that with his Vance and Hines. It's proven to be pretty popular, and they have full grids. And
is it like the old Battle of the Twins? I mean, same.
Well, I mean, it's spec bikes, so they're all on the same bike. So
Right.
you don't have competing brands. You don't have, like, back then we had like Ducati and
Right.
Buells
Yeah,
and
true.
all sorts of stuff thrown in together. These are all the Harley-Davidson 1200s. And I think there's going to be one other spec class. I mean, there's rumors that I've heard rumors from anything from the little KTM 390
Yeah.
to perhaps Yamaha's having a 300, Kawasaki's got a 300. So it'll be something along the lines of a small, fairly basic motorcycle that can be turned into a little race bike that kids can
I like
actually get some competition against each other
Maybe
at
Gavin
an
Tripp's
at an AMA event.
his
so.
old 450 singles will get some.
Well, I mean, there was also talk of that too, and I know Gavin worked hard on that project. A few
There are guys
years
still
ago.
racing those things. I know he's still in contact
Yeah,
with a few
he
guys
sent me an
who built
email and
those.
showed me some guys that
Yeah.
that am doing pretty well on the club level. That's about it. I mean, World Superbike Series is losing 2 of their stars. Eugene Laverty will be Nicky Hayden's teammate on the Aspar Honda team next year, and Loris Baz, who I mentioned earlier, as helping his teammate on the factory Kawasaki, will move to the Ford Yamaha MotoGP team next year. That's the team that Colin Edwards was racing for. So that's about it on the news front, and I think we should talk to Brock briefly about the
Straight
the
rhythm. Well, and also donations, Brock.
Yeah, I'd
Give
love
us
to
a
hear
little
about that.
snapshot of Latvia.
Okay, we'll just go chronologically.
Yes.
Latvia was an interesting race, a kind of a fast sand track. Got real choppy. The riders, it was sandy enough that the riders used, and for the Dunlop riders, they used the MX-11 tire, which is our
paddle?
the scoop tires. It's kind of known over in Europe, but yeah, it's a mini paddle tire. Our tire tends to work a little better as the track gets. It's soft, but as the track gets a little harder, it still is a tire that you can run. You don't have to just dump it immediately as soon as it gets a hard base. But so that's the kind of conditions the track was. The speeds were high, and the track was a little hard to pass, so it made things a little difficult if you got a poor start. So starts were very critical, something the American riders did not accomplish at all.
Not to interrupt, but didn't they have that stupid corner that you always say they shouldn't have in Supercross that went back on itself, right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it was like made for people to crash.
Wait, explain. What
No,
is it?
I'm highly opposed to 180 corners, and
Yeah.
in this particular one, it was a right-hand 180 corner, and they always talk about right-hand versus left-hand. That it's always better to have a left so you can have your brake and all. I think it makes almost no difference. I think that the fact that the riders don't drag your foot going to the first corner
Right.
until the last second, you might dab it, but that time you've already done all your braking. To me, the biggest factor of any corner like that is basically a 180 corner. 180s are worse, 90s are marginal, but you can have a 90 when you spread it out. But if you don't have the track, it's not a long start. It doesn't spread out, and there was a crash every single first corner.
Right, and you wonder why they'd run the
Every
risk
start.
of ruining a race by having some of your stars crash in the first corner.
They do it every single time when you have 180s. The best starts in motocross, if you watch them routinely, you very rarely see like a Glen Helen, the longest start in motocross tracks, and that I
A
know
nice
of.
big corner.
Huge sweeping corner.
Plenty of
and-
time for
and
guys
it's-
to sort themselves
Yeah,
out.
it's very long. So if you have a couple hundredths of a second advantage out of the gate, your bikes, you're separated by 3 or 4 bike lengths at the end of the straightaway. A couple hundredths of an advantage coming out of a short start, you're barely separated by a wheel, and some guys ass packing you coming in the corner and knocking you down. So
He said pack.
Yes. And it's just ridiculous, honestly, to have a world-class motocross facility. And
How was the
have these-
crowd over there? in
It
Latvia?
was pretty good. I mean, remember that you're talking about a country, and as I know, our previous guest, Zach Osborne, explained to us, I mean, it wasn't that long ago when it was all Soviet-controlled. There's still, on the way to the track, you can still see the housing projects of back of the era. They're just basically just cookie-cutter, monopoly-looking high-rise apartment complexes that they just, the with the communism and
Right.
socialism, that's just how they,
how they did it.
Everybody had basically equal housing, and you all lived in these basically the same.
How about where they accommodated
stuff.
you guys? A nice hotel?
Well, yeah, and then there's this other whole side of the country that has modern homes and facilities and hotels and really pretty old downtown areas. So all that was very nice, and it was a beautiful, the track was a beautiful facility. The start's probably the biggest thing. So the American riders went in on Saturday after practice. You race heat races, qualifying races, where you're divided up into your individual classes. So you have the MX1, which is obviously the 450 Premier class. They race. You have MX2, which is the 250 class, where we had Jeremy Martin riding. And then the open class, which you can pretty much ride what you want. Most of the guys did ride the 350s and 450s. If you rode a KTM, some of them rode 350s. But that's that class, and then that was Eli Tomac's class. So none of our riders won their race. None of them got a hole shot. We had competitive riding.
Right.
The biggest thing that happened to the American team by far, I'm sure everyone's pretty much seen it, was when Jeremy Martin was making his way through the pack. He tried to change a line. It might have been a stone in the middle of a rutted section, but whatever it was, he hit it in the rut. And it
broke plural toes, right?
Yeah, it flipped him off. It was a horrendous crash. He was telling me that he was like, I knew at that point I had to just kind of step through the bars and get off the thing. And he was lucky, very lucky, to come down with just what he did injure was his right foot. And multiple fractures in his right toe, pretty severely to where it's going to require surgery. And his that was his big toe, and then his small toe, he ended up having a fracture in that too. So had to really gut it out, honestly. I mean, he really did do a tremendous job considering what happened to him to be able to ride. Unfortunately, he wasn't at his peak, and the riders over there, that's a track they race every year. It's one that they know, and our riders were a little bit, I guess they were kind of learning as they race. The lines changed consistently. You had to get used to the surface changing. It went from a full sandy track to kind of a sandy, hard base underneath. So, they had to adapt as they raced. And, the biggest downfall was the starts. And then in the final race, when it looked like, American team had a chance for a second place in the finish, we, looked up, and next thing you know, Tomac's on the ground. Tomac had the fastest race lap in his combined race, which was the Open MX.
So what were the circumstances of Tomac crashing?
He just went down in the first corner, and in the first race, he also tangled and was about third or fourth coming in through the corner, and by the time he came out of the corner, he was about 15th, and it was another tangled-up situation, too. And in the first one, he had some bike setup problems. He was complaining of his forks. He didn't use the same setup that he'd used earlier in the year. And, I don't know if it was his fault or what, but I heard him say that they were going to go back to the same setup he ran at Millville, where he was the fastest guy on the planet that day. He was unbelievable at Millville. So for him to run that same setup on a similar track was a smart move. And then last race, he went down in the first corner, and he was riding about 3 to 3.5 seconds faster than the leaders. And he was blindingly fast and would have probably went from last to first had he not stalled with about 5 laps to go when he was right on the rear fender of the second place rider, Jeremy Van Horbeek from Belgium. So tremendous ride, and he came back, ended up finishing third. Dungey had to make his way from a first lap crash where he literally came around behind Tomac at the end of the first lap. So he went down, and he made his way through, not at the rate that Tomac did by any means, but he was certainly making his way through the pack, finished, I think, at 10th or 11th. And the American team tied for third and won on a tiebreaker. I'm not sure if it was the lowest, their throwout moto was better, or their individual one rider.
But they went in tied for points.
Yeah, and Dungey had a second one moto, so that was better than anything Great Britain had. But, I mean, it was disappointing, no question about it. I mean, is it smart for us to always routinely take the 250, the MX2 champion from the United States, even though our series over here, as we know, is kind of a developmental series? It's not the fastest 3 riders. Who are the fastest 3 riders that were available? In my opinion, the fastest 3 motorcycle riders the United States had to go, if you picked them, would probably have been Kennard, Tomac, and Dungey. But Martin, some ways you say deserved it because he won a 250 championship. But on the flip side,
but that's not what it's about.
It's not what it's about. I mean, people went away from that. To have the American team, last 3 years we finished second, a third, a second, and a third, and you can tell people are like, wait, this isn't.
Well, like
maybe they'll take it more seriously next
year. Whoever picked the French team, for example, we were critical because we thought he left off 2 of his best guys. Well, he obviously knew what he was talking about and picked the 3 guys that he thought would perform the best, and they did.
Absolutely.
And then I was surprised when I watched the first moto, and it was. Dungey was in the mix there. He's 3rd or 4th or whatever, and you're thinking, okay, this is Ryan freaking Dungey. Here we go, and he's just going to smoke these guys, and it just doesn't happen. So it shows you that those guys, I think our perception of their level is a lot lower than what it actually is, and I think this event shows that.
Well, Dungey finished to 2nd place. I mean, he rode well, and that was nice to see. I mean, he's our consistent performer. That's the guy. He's kind of the basis of the team, so you can rely on him to do good. Second moto when he went down the first lap, I didn't see what happened per se, but he did his best. He came back through. Those riders do ride fast over there, don't it's not just and then stuff happens to all sorts of different people. I mean, one of the funny things that happened in some ways, not funny on the track, but funny on the way to the track. I mean, here's Antonio Caroli riding at 250. Now, Antonio Caroli's ego didn't get in his way. He stepped down to the MX2 class, even though he's been multi-time world champion in the Premier Climb.
Something.
So, so to ask one of our guys, maybe it's a Kennard or maybe it's a Tomac to step down. I mean, the precedent's been set. I mean, when the 8-time world champion can do
it's on a 250.
Why can't you do it? So on the way to the track, though, first practice session goes Sunday morning. Where's Antonio Caroli? Not on the track. No time, nothing, doesn't ride, nobody sees him. Well, later we find out that evening, or actually I found out the next morning having breakfast with one of the mechanics from the Belgian team. He says, yeah, how about Caroli? And I said, what was his deal yesterday morning? Well, I guess he's on the way to the track going a little bit too fast, and one of the local police guys who really used this weekend. They use this weekend.
Christmas season.
It is. It's an ATM machine, honestly. They're sitting outside this little unknown railroad crossing, and there's a little tiny sign that says stop over to the side, but you don't really even notice it. And
it's in Latvian.
Yeah, or Russian.
It's actually
or
on a
Russian.
pinwheel.
Yeah.
It's like on a little propeller.
And if you weren't stopping at this thing, they were pulling you over, and they were just
€50.
€50 a shot. Seriously, it was an ATM machine for him. They were just going €50.
So did he not have €50 in his pocket?
So it wasn't €50. He was driving, I guess, at a rate that the particular policeman either knew who he was or figured he had bigger bank accounts than the other people, and he wanted €1,500 for speeding. And he's basically told him, I'm not giving you €1,500, almost $2,000 for a speeding ticket. And they said, okay, then you have to go down to the jail.
Put these bracelets on, please.
And so they took him to jail. And so he spent the morning in jail while everybody else was out practicing. He was incarcerated. So that's what I'd heard, and makes sense. He wasn't at the track, and I'd heard. And Scott said he heard about the rumor in Germany too.
Oh yeah,
so.
It was the buzz at the Intermont show.
Yeah, so that's just the kind of backhanded corruption stuff that's still going on there, which is kind of a bummer. But the overall race itself.
So did you spring him out of jail, Brock? You post bail for him? Or?
I used the money you probably won at the local blackjack table there. But so that's the Motocross Nations. It's do you get tired of when they've got a trophy now for third place and the U.S. team's on it twice in the last 3 years? It's it is a little frustrating.
I just think they need to get back to having a guy that can go there and freaking dominate, even if he might be a guy that screws up, but at least have a guy that could potentially come away from that thing as the guy, like a James Stewart.
Or a Villopoto.
Yeah,
Brock Glover comeback. Brock Glover comeback.
But, so, that was kind of the Motocross of Nations. I know maybe we can pick up straight rhythm a little on the other side.
I'm anxious to hear about straight rhythm.
Yeah, let's talk with Eric Peronnard, just entrepreneur, inventor, all-around kick-ass human being, and will easily be the smartest guy in the room when we come back here on Bike Week
and
Radio
the man
Show.
who was basically running the straight rhythm event.
Exactly. And so we'll recap that up at the Pomona Fairplex with Eric Peronnard coming up next. But right now, here's one of those helpful riding hints from our friends at Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys.
Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys have been representing riders for decades. And here's Chuck Coro from Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys to provide you with a helpful riding hint.
Just because the light is green, it doesn't give a driver the absolute right to enter the intersection. Pursuant to California Vehicle Code Section 21451, you have to yield the right-of-way to other traffic and to pedestrians lawfully in the intersection or in an adjacent crosswalk. In other words, clear the intersection visibly before entering and don't gun it as you're approaching a fresh green.
This helpful hint was brought to you by Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys at 1-800-4BIKERS or online at russbrown.com.
Hi, James here from Toyota of Escondido. Guys, if you're hearing this commercial, that means you are into powerful machines that go fast and are durable. Toyota of Escondido has the biggest selection in San Diego of Toyota Tacomas and Toyota Tundras. Whether for work or play, we can customize the truck of your choice into the truck of your dreams. Don't waste time anywhere else. Stop by or give us a call. Toyota of Escondido. Freeway close where Highway 78 meets Broadway, just east of the 15.
Here's an idea. Bear with me. You could save quite a bit of money just by switching your motorcycle insurance to Geico. Piles of it, in fact. But there may not be a lot of room on your bike for all that extra cash. So I had somewhat of an idea. You could get one of those nifty little sidecars, pile it up with all that money you just saved, and merrily drive on your way. It's just a thought. Just off the top of my head.
Call Geico today for a free motorcycle rate quote. Geico, saving people money on more than just car insurance.
For 46 years, Costa Mesa Speedway has been the most exciting, colorful, and unpredictable live-action show ever. From the comfort of grandstand seating, your friends and family will witness top professional speedway motorcycle racing, insane two-man sidecar teams, Harley hardcores, freestyle motocross, and much more. Check out their entire schedule at CostaMesaSpeedway.net. Costa Mesa Speedway on the Orange County Fairgrounds Saturday nights. Don't miss it. CostaMesaSpeedway.net. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys are the real deal. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys. Their entire practice is dedicated to representing motorcyclists. As riders themselves, they understand why you ride, the issues you face, and the motorcycle culture. For over 30 years, Russ Brown and his partner Chuck Coro have been helping injured motorcyclists and their families get the care and compensation they deserve. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys also created BAM. BAM! A nationwide buddy system of over 2 million riders helping riders in the event of a roadside emergency. BAM offers free legal advice, and thanks to Russ Brown, they have staff on hand to take your call 24/7, 365 days a year. Imagine a real person answering the phone 24/7. Just call 1-800-4BIKERS for more information and to get your BAM card today. If you go down, call Russ Brown, 1-800-4BIKERS, and online at russbrown.com.
Hi, I'm Barry Weiss, and you're listening to Bike Week Radio Show.
Welcome back, Bike Week Radio Show, San Diego sports leader, Mighty 1090.
How about that, Barry?
Gotta love that, Barry Weiss. And once again, the show is not long enough because as soon as we go to break, what do you think we started? We don't just sit here in silence. Some hotly debated content still about the news and the motocross nations, and man, you guys it's fired up still.
It's tough, I mean, I came from old school back in the day, whatever. I came from an era where we won like 13 straight, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we won 13 straight, had a couple weekend years off.
He comes from an era and from a team that won.
Yeah, and we skipped a little, time. We didn't go with the 9/11 in 2001. But then all of a sudden we had another run of 7 straight. So it's kind of used to winning. And you go over there, and I know you see a trophy, and they're handing out first place trophy, which is the Chamberlain trophy. That's the one you want. Then you get a second place trophy they've got now, and then they've got an annual third place trophy.
And then you've got like a participation medal ribbon.
No, but it's actually it's a trophy for third place, and it's got the USA's name on it. So I said,
and it's got a guy and a bowling ball on top of it.
So the ultimate goal is is our ultimate goal to kind of keep our name off of that thing, or what? I mean, that's kind of, if your name's on the third place trophy, isn't your goal to not have your name on it? I mean, to mine's to be having on the first place team. So it does get a little frustrating. I know the guys tried as hard as they could. It just, things didn't happen. Did have a lot of bad luck this year, though. I mean, it was just one thing after another, but so did some of the other teams. And the French team just dominated. It wasn't even close. I think they had 17 points or 19 points, and I think we had 32 or something. So,
and that French thing is kind of a good segue here.
Yeah, so speaking of French people and French stuff there.
Eric Peronnard, good morning, buddy.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for inviting me. Glad to be back.
Hey, Eric, good job yesterday. That's what first and foremost. That Red Bull Straight Rhythm was I was very impressed for a first-time event, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. I mean, it means a lot to me, and we were dozens of people working very hard to make it successful, and it seems like it worked well because the vibe has been so positive. It's I keep receiving email, text message, and voicemail telling me how great it was. So it reminds me a little bit the good old days of the U.S. Open in '98. When I created that, and it's always good to be associated to a great project.
Well, thanks for answering our question there. I asked Scott a minute ago, hey, what year did Eric start? Because I wanted to bring up the fact that
I said 2000, Eric, but then I thought, it seems too late. Had to be before. So 98.
So, I mean, Eric Peronnard, I've known you. I mean, let's fill in people like who, Eric, who you are for the standpoint. Growing up in France, riding motorcycles, the Bercy Supercross comes in '84. You attend. I mean, fill us in how you got from where you were to riding.
Just simply, I was an American guy trapped in a French body.
In a French zip code. It's so true.
And I wanted to move to America badly, and I was looking up to you, Broc. Like I told you many times, when I realized how good you were already at 17, 18, I realized I had no future in racing. So I decided very quickly to switch my energy to doing something else to be associated with racing. And I became a race promoter pretty quickly. And, I was a associate producer first and became my own promoter. And now I've got really the privilege to be working with the best companies in the world, like Red Bull, like ESPN, like Fox, and it's a dream coming true. But once again, you have to work to make your dream happen, as everybody successful knows.
And I think back at Eric. I mean, I think back at your stepping stones through your life, and how you got to where you are today. I mean, the Yamaha dealership in Las Vegas, and the
tours.
The
How about
tours,
the
international tours. You brought a lot of people over and got to ride bikes in the desert and things like that. I think back at like I mentioned, even the Bercy Supercross days. I think back at the invention of the U.S. Open, and how about your Endurocross series that you've got going? How about the fact that you're tied in with the ESPN and the X Games events and bringing the Endurocross to that? As you mentioned, this Red Bull Straight Rhythm is a new baby. I mean, it's just one thing after another. And then you're also, I know you work for Fox, the clothing company and lifestyle company, and you advise them on certain things. So, wow. Got a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah, I'm tired just listening to it. But it's a juggling contest, at times. But overall, I try to be very respectful to my clients and my friends. So at the end of the day, it works. Let's get back to what happened yesterday. I think it was really a very, very successful out-of-the-box, concept, and it's what I specialize in. If you're looking for somebody to do a new out-of-the-box concept, I may be the best suited guy to do that. But that said, it doesn't. I'm taking it very lightly. I don't want to think that I'm better than anybody or anything like that. It's just I'm working hard, and so far so good.
Well, tell everybody. I mean, some people
describe it. Just tell people what is Red Bull Straight Rhythm.
I mean, you used basically to start a drag strip, right, from the full runoff to the very beginning.
Yes, I mean, to me, the easiest way to describe it is it's a dragster supercross. I mean, if you think about dragster racing and you combine with supercross, you got the picture in your head. It's a straight line. We made it twice longer than a drag strip, which is a half a mile instead of a quarter mile. But really, the concept was there. We had the Christmas tree for the start. The riders were not allowed to switch lane. All the rules that applies to dragster were applied to Red Bull Straight Rhythm. So it was really, really neat the way it worked, I have to say, last year we did a test tube in the mountains, and I went there, with Red Bull to check it out, and I was skeptical, and suddenly it was like I loved it. Everybody that was there loved it. It was just a matter of seeing it with your own eyes. And I think the same thing happened this Saturday in Pomona. People just were wondering, and then at the end of the race, it was like everybody was in love with it. So and you seemed like you were one of those, Brock.
I mean, absolutely. I was impressed. I mean, you battled literally when I was on my way there. I was passing the old kind of milestone exit where the practice track is up there. I looked down on my thermometer on my truck, and it was 106, and I'm thinking, holy Toledo, this is pulled.
Of course, it was only 98 outside.
Yeah,
but inside the truck was
pulled into the Fairplex at 103 degrees, and there were cars everywhere, people in the stands. I mean, you had the whole dragster spectator, the stands. You had big Trinitron-style monitors, TV monitors, so you could watch. Which, I mean, I guess if I had to critique one thing, I said it would be nice to have the extra monitor. I felt like it was a little bit too far, but I'm sure those things aren't cheap. But lots of crowd, lots of vendors, lots of different things. One of the, you had everybody from, people, T-shirt vendors to, you could walk up and down, the guys over at Surface, the sunscreen people were, they were a well-attended booth. There was just, you had all the, teams lined up with their semis and a lot of people just cruising around, walking back and forth. I mean, you had a half a mile of racetrack that you could walk back and forth on. And on top of that, you had the big bleachers where you could, that were probably on the last eighth of a mile that you could watch the last section of it. And then you ended up having some fantastic riders win. Obviously, Red Bull had to be happy with Marvin Muskin winning the 250 class. And then, you had James Stewart, another Red Bull athlete, winning the open class. And then having guys like Travis Pastrana build
show up. How about, I didn't attend the event, but some of the posts, I was watching social media, you just get back from Germany, but Travis did something when he was racing against Josh Hansen towards the end that's just like, talk about using a French word, coup de grace, huh, Eric? He does a backflip. You're racing the guy, and the guy next to you does a backflip as he passes you for the finish. Come on.
Yeah. After that, I think every other competitor was pretty much down because as a couple of guys told me, say, what can we do better than that? It's over.
It's done.
It was. I mean, the first time I saw him go at finish, he was going too fast, and he flatlands the thing way out there. And then when he does the backflip, I'm like, oh, my gosh. But, and then, one of the most exciting parts to me, honestly, was, Malcolm Stewart was on his game. I mean, he ran his...
Did Mookie and James, did they run together?
They ended up, unfortunately, that's the only thing that I thought...
Semis,
they ended up in the semis against each other instead of being on the other side of the brackets because, it was... It was an amazing race. Those guys, Malcolm gave James all he wanted.
That's awesome.
Yep. No, absolutely. I'm used to work with Malcolm off season, and he's such a good kid. He's so motivated, and I don't know what happens during the regular season, but Malcolm is going with me to do all the European races the next couple of months, and he's so pumped, he's so happy, and I'm telling you, he's gonna win. It's just unbelievable how well he rides when he doesn't have so much pressure. He's one of those guys, and Brock, you've been with a lot of competitors like that. He's kind of like a Larry Ward was in his time. He was kind of he could be the best once you remove the championship pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And so, actually, here's, bathroom urinal talk. Oh, sorry. Going to the bathroom. I'm walking to the bathroom at the end of I can't believe they picked Blake Baggett over Malcolm. Yoshimura Suzuki should have hired Malcolm. They could have had the two Stewart brothers on the same team. And that was the talk in the bathroom. I'm like cracking up, listening, going, that's not a bad thing. But I know Blake Baggett's been riding real well in the off season here. Yeah. So, but it's that was.
So how
exciting.
Did the riders like it? I mean, Brock, you and Eric. I mean, you talked to guys afterwards. What was the buzz? I mean, were they pretty pumped about this format?
I mean, the riders really loved it, and I made a point to be thanking every riders. And the way it goes, you have a lot of guys being basically cleaned out. And I was there every time we remove a transponder to a rider, which is, basically telling them the day is over. And 99% of the guys were very grateful and so happy. And it's not a good job to be there removing transponders to people that lost the race. But,
yeah. Exactly.
Everybody was just very positive. Thank you so much for inviting me. I mean, they were like, they came back to the starting area to thank us. I mean, we've been around that world for a long time, and we know riders sometimes can be too much in the racing, and sometimes they forget why they're there. And nobody did that. It was touching to a point, to see how excited riders were and grateful. So I'm pumped.
When can we see it again?
I've got all reason to believe it's going to happen again next year. I mean, Red Bull was ecstatic. We went farther than any expectation. We were hoping for 10,000 people. We got almost 14. I mean, the weather condition was definitely difficult. To come back to a chapter that Broc mentioned earlier, we only had couple people fainting out of the entire group of people. So there were 50,000
Broc and who?
people.
Who was the other guy that fainted?
Yeah, I'm sorry about a couple spectators had mild heat issues, and that's it. And the best part of the weekend is we didn't have a single crash. Not a single crash.
Awesome. That's amazing. Broc told us that because the first thing we said was, how was the event and how bad were the get-offs? He said there weren't any.
There weren't, so.
Yeah, and that's, I'm telling you, any race day without crashes and without injury is a great day, because at the end of the day, we've done that all our life, and taking people away in ambulance is not the best part of our job by far. And that was really a blessing to have a day like that where, all the stars were lined up and people were happy, no injuries. I mean, a couple egos were bruised, but that's racing.
They'll recover, maybe. Best part of our job is talking to you, Eric Peronnard.
Yeah, Eric, great stuff, man. We really appreciate you making time for us.
All right, thank you so much. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Come by to the final Endurocross in Ontario.
Right,
we'll be there.
We'll do.
Hey, Bobby's doing the run.
He's training for the run.
Yep, we got to put him in there. So, all right, Eric, thanks, buddy. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, thanks again, Eric Peronnard. Coming up next, Alex Chacón, adventure rider, with some incredible stories. Last segment with Alex coming up next right here on San Diego Sports Leader, Mighty 1090.
Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys are the real deal. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys. Their entire practice is dedicated to representing motorcyclists. As riders themselves, they understand why you ride, the issues you face, and the motorcycle culture. For over 30 years, Russ Brown and his partner Chuck Coro have been helping injured motorcyclists and their families get the care and compensation they deserve. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys also created BAM. BAM! A nationwide buddy system of over 2 million riders helping riders in the event of a roadside emergency. BAM offers free legal advice, and thanks to Russ Brown, they have staff on hand to take your call 24/7, 365 days a year. Imagine a real person answering the phone 24/7. Just call 1-800-4BIKERS for more information and to get your BAM card today. If you go down, call Russ Brown, 1-800-4BIKERS, and online at russbrown.com.
Hey guys, this is James from Toyota of Escondido. For the heavy-duty truck that you need for work or play, shop right here at Toyota of Escondido. Come down and check out the new 2013 Toyota Tacoma or the 2013 Toyota Tundra. We've got the perfect vehicle to fit your active lifestyle, with most vehicles at 0% on approved credit. Stop by, give us a call, or visit us online at the only place for big-time trucks, ToyotaEscondido.com.
Toyota of Escondido.
Freeway close where Highway 78 meets Broadway, just east of the 15.
Here's an idea. Bear with me. You could save quite a bit of money just by switching your motorcycle insurance to Geico. Piles of it, in fact. But there may not be a lot of room on your bike for all that extra cash. So I had somewhat of an idea. You could get one of those nifty little sidecars, pile it up with all that money you just saved, and merrily drive on your way. It's just a thought. Just off the top of my head.
Call Geico today for a free motorcycle rate quote. Geico, saving people money on more than just car insurance.
For 46 years, Costa Mesa Speedway has been the most exciting, colorful, and unpredictable live-action show ever. From the comfort of grandstand seating, your friends and family will witness top professional speedway motorcycle racing, insane two-man sidecar teams, Harley hardcores, freestyle motocross, and much more. Check out their entire schedule at CostaMesaSpeedway.net. Costa Mesa Speedway on the Orange County Fairgrounds Saturday nights. Don't miss it. CostaMesaSpeedway.net.
It's wild, it's crazy, and it's here! The award-winning Bike Week radio show. I'm Larry Supermouth Huffman, inviting you to sit back, relax, and be thrilled by the latest happenings in the world of motorcycles. Featuring the golden boy Broc Glover, the incredible Paul Carruthers, Bobby Wooldridge, and a man so tough he goes to Mexico just to drink the water, Scott Cox. So get ready, Southern California, for Bike Week radio on the mighty 1090.
I'm all
Welcome
teared
back.
up.
Bike Week Radio Show, CADS Sports Leader, Mighty 1090. Gotta love that Larry Huffman rejoiner.
And we do.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Larry, for putting that together. Well, let's head out to the hotline. Alex Chacón, modernmotodiaries.com is the website. Follow him on Twitter at modernmotoguy. And the YouTube video that everyone's talking about, over 10 million views and counting, because we just watched it again here on the break because we can't get enough of it. Around the world in 360 degrees.
We're all spinning right now with our iPhones.
And Alex Chacón, thanks for joining Bike Week Radio Show.
Hey, guys. Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, buddy. And so for those who haven't seen the video, it's 36 countries, 600 days, 5 motorcycles, over 125,000 miles. And just tell us a little bit about putting that video together.
Sure, absolutely. So 3 years ago, I graduated college, and I decided to travel the world like many of us wish they could. And, I quit medical school, sold everything I had, including my TV, my car, my clothes, everything I had, and just started traveling around. And that's what basically ended up doing the whole trip. And that trip took me, as you mentioned, through all those beautiful places around the world, Alaska to Argentina on one bike, and then different bikes to India, Nepal, to Europe, and North Africa as well. And it was really a huge challenge to do it on a budget, which is what I did.
How did you, how much did it cost to actually do that?
He probably doesn't want to add it up.
Did you add it up, or how did you fund
he told
it?
You it cost him a TV, a car. His dog.
It cost me everything that I had. I came back to nothing, basically. It's hard to really put a figure on it, just because people along the way would help me out. They would hear my story. They would hear about what I was doing. They were just so inspired that people would buy me food. They would want to chat with me. They would even house me. I would do a lot of what they call couch surfing. I would do a lot of homestays. I would do a lot of camping. So there was a lot of money saving involved. But at the same time, the kindness of strangers was absolutely amazing, just because they were, as you guys, when you see the video, you feel very inspired to want to travel yourself or want to do something on bikes, whatever it may be, that people were really moved from it, and they really wanted to see me finish. So at a certain point, I actually ran out of money, and people started helping me out, and that's how I ended up completing the journey.
I've watched this video so many times, and I think one of the coolest things you do at the end is where you list all the countries that and where the locations were that and I actually went on Google Maps and started looking at some of the locations just to refresh myself, because I'm a little bit of a map junkie. But amazing thing. Did you ever have any moments? We've had guests on that have literally traveled down to tips of South America and then have been kidnapped.
Or attempted to.
Yeah, attempted to. Yeah, literally kidnapped. Their bikes were stolen and everything. Did you ever have any moments like that you feared for your safety, or did you ever have any health issues? If I'm eating maybe some local cuisine that wasn't didn't set well with you?
Absolutely. I think all the above is definitely what I've experienced. I've had moments in the Patagonia or in Argentina, one of the most remote places on Earth, to where my engine actually blew up and I was stranded for 4 days without food until finally help arrived. And there's been situations to where I ingested a horrible parasite in India, and I ended up in the emergency room twice in a matter of weeks. And there's been situations to where you're completely alone, and a situation comes up where you say, if I make this choice, if I take the wrong path, or if I decide to go over this very shaky bridge, it could be the last thing I ever do. And that, along with just a typical petty theft, is a huge thing around the world. Small kids go around your bike and they open up the zippers and they take off, the things that are very easy. But it's really hard, in my opinion, to really encounter a life-threatening situation like kidnapped or hostage unless you put yourself in those situations. And that's basically if you want to cross the Darien Gap from Panama to Colombia, you're going to run into the FARC. And they say don't do that, obviously for safety reasons. But, if you drive at night at the wrong place, or, sometimes it's really a brash of luck at the same time. So in my experience, I encountered a little bit of everything, but nothing ever too extreme because I took the right precautions, traveling in the daytime, not having a lot of money on me at all times, and picking the major routes down as well, and, some remote ones here and there. But just general travel safety will take you a long way.
Alex, what's the equipment? I mean, when you pack your backpack, and I've been looking through your website and your Facebook page here, what are some of the basics? If somebody is inspired by your slot here on the show this morning, what are the top 10 things that you bring along with you on a trip like you do?
Great. Well, the best thing about what I did is the fact that, what separates me from everybody else is absolutely nothing. It's just the fact that I was the one who was crazy enough to sacrifice everything I had to do it. And the best thing about something like this is that you can do it with nothing. The fact is that I quite literally did it with nothing. Now, things that are great to have and a good, nice little luxury is obviously a camera would be number one because you don't want to forget those great experiences and the horrible experiences. I figured out that having a GPS is wonderful just because I drove all over the world, and most of it I did not have a GPS, and I was kicking myself in the back of the head because I didn't. Because you waste more time and more money on gas getting lost and finding directions than this silly GPS here in the States costs you. So I think that, along with your intelligence and your tactics on planning on what could go wrong, your contingency plans, is not something that's tangible to take. But if you're not mentally ready, your whole trip can be disastrous, and it's not very life-threatening at the same time. So I think those are the three things that are very important to have. It doesn't matter what bike you take. It doesn't matter what camera you take. It doesn't matter, really, there's got to be some money, but, like I just proved, a student with, luckily no college debt, but with a student who sold everything he had, managed to do it for a total of 3 years. I think, we all can manage a few weeks out of the year, if anything, and a little bit more money.
Alex, what's your motorcycling background? I mean, some of the riding you must have done on this trip, it doesn't, there's no way it was just all easy riding.
Right. So my background basically started when I was 2 years old. My father put me on the motorcycle, and I was hooked, just as a passenger. And it wasn't until the age of 15 when I got my first motorcycle. I was raised in the state of Texas, and wonderfully enough, you can actually have a license at age 15. So you can imagine I was the coolest guy at school driving a motorcycle at 15 because no one even thought about taking a bike. And I had a Suzuki Katana, and it was this nice little street bike, and I took it around. But I really didn't get into traveling in the, enduro-style bikes that I now use, kind of dual sport purpose vehicles, until I was about 17 when I got my first Kawasaki KLR. And it was a transition very quickly between understanding what a motorcycle is to what is a motorcycle that I need to do what I want. So I really never had motocross training. I had absolutely really no training, except the thing that pulled me through was my sheer will and motivation to want to travel the world the most adventurous way I knew possible. And I learned along the way. All my training came in the first 3 weeks of riding. I experienced the best things, the worst things, the highs and the lows in a matter of days.
I noticed you spent did you ride most of it on a KLR? Is that what you used, the Kawasaki?
Yeah, I would say most of it was the KLR. It's, like I say, it's a Swiss Army knife of dual sport vehicles. So it's a great bike.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, I drove all over India on the Royal Enfield, which is a heavy piece of bike, not very powerful. And all you got to do is strap a bunch of backpacks and a bunch of bags at the back, and you get yourself a travel bike. So I've even seen people on Harley Davidsons ride the whole Pan American. So again, I wouldn't limit yourself by what you have, what you think you need. The idea is that I traveled all 46 continental U.S. states by the age of 17 on a dirt bike, with a backpack strapped at the back. So it doesn't matter what you have. It's just the wanting to do it is a big thing.
Alex, did you have people join you along the route? I mean, I'm most of the photos it shows you, but there are a few, or there's some other riders, maybe guys that just cross an intersection with you. But anybody partner up and say, hey, let's go through 3 countries together?
Absolutely. I would say my best friend on the trip, though, was a tripod, which is why you see great pictures, because a lot of the great remote places I visited, you can't really have anyone with you just because people's time frames, different jobs, different schedules. But I definitely had a lot of people join me along the trip. I had one gentleman that worked at the Alaskan pipeline, and he joined me from my U.S. trip from Maine to Florida for 6 days. I had people in Mexico join me for 2 weeks. I even had some company on the back of the bike for 2-3 weeks. Other travelers, people who were just getting from A to B and they wanted a fun experience or a cheaper transportation or a ride. And it was really great to actually be able to share the experience with someone rather than just using my tripod and experiencing everything myself. But the wonderful thing about the day and age we live in is the fact that we can use digital media, social media, to actually share the adventure, which is why my video actually almost has 11 million views now, because people can understand how difficult it is to grab your buddies together and ride. Sometimes you just got to do it yourself, otherwise it's never going to happen.
And Alex, we just got one more question for you. We're up against the clock here a little bit, but I'm on modernmotodiaries.com, and I see 2015 route. You have a new trip coming up, and it goes through Australia, Europe, Asia, Africa. I mean, you're all over the place. When's that one going to start?
That should start next year. There's a lot of great fun projects coming along, as well as a version number 2 from around the world in 360 degrees. So stay tuned for that video as well. You can check out my YouTube. You can just search my name, Alex Chacón, and you'll see a bunch of great new videos, and you'll see that route next year as well. I think there's going to be a lot more coming up. So just stay tuned. Stick with me on social media, on Facebook. Search my name, and you'll be able to follow the adventure. And need I say, even join me on some of it if you wish.
Come visit us in San Diego, Alex.
Absolutely.
We want you in
Perfect.
Studio.
You got it. Next time we'll be sure to stop by and say hi to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. We want you on the show there. We can meet you in person.
We're going to ride with him.
Thanks, Alex.
It's amazing.
Thanks, guys.
Well, very impressive.
I caught one of his videos. You got to look up his videos. Alex Chacón, Chacon, and there's one that he's actually just filming himself crashing when you're talking about his riding skills.
It's like Monty Python.
Yeah, he's in he rides down some crazy walls alongside of rivers and things. I mean, it's some scary routes that like 1,000-foot cliffs on one side, and he's putting along some little skinny trail. I mean,
with a bike that's loaded with 500 pounds of gear.
Right, exactly. But he has a whole section of the video that would just tip overs and crashes and things, including one I think on that Royal Enfield he talks about.
And finally, before we get out of here, reminder: BikeWeekRadioShow.com. We have those posters. You can still sign up. We're giving them away next weekend. Steve Bauer and Brad Lackey. We still have those posters.
Oh man, the requests are coming from everywhere. This thing's really blown up. So next week we announce some
original Torsten Hallman poster that had all
these
the
are
European...
new old stock, as they say. We located a box and there were a bunch of them in there. So next week's the week.
Really, really incredible stuff. BikeWeekRadioShow.com. Sign up. Announcing the winners next week. Only 5 of them. So sign up. Broc Glover, great work out of you, buddy.
Thanks.
Paul Carruthers, editor of Cycle News. We'll see you next week, my friend.
I'll be here.
Scott Cox.
Can't wait. I'll be back.
Awesome. Thanks you again to Phil Cotner and Gene Turner, our behind-the-scenes people. And, of course, shout out to my Nana, who celebrates her 90th birthday.
Oh,
what day? My wife, shout out to my wife, Thursday.
Molly, happy birthday.
It's not her 90th, but her mother's 90th coming up on December.
Big shout out to Zach Osborne and his
4th.
family. Birth of his first baby on October 3rd. So
very cool.
Way to go, Zach.
All right, happy birthday, Nana.
We'll be back next week. If you missed any of the show, check out the podcast at BikeWeekRadioShow.com. We'll be back right here next Sunday on San Diego Sports Leader, Mighty 1090.
You've been listening to Bike Week Radio Show.
Powered by Geico. 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.
Join us next week for more Bike Week Radio Show on San Diego's sports leader, the Mighty 1090.